So in this video, it is time for the Doji Candlestick pattern. And the Doji is actually just a single candlestick. And on its own, it doesn't say too much, but if you learn to spot it in the right context, it can provide some very valuable information and help you guys improve your trading significantly. So in this video, we will first take a look at the Doji candle. We will take a look at some different types of Doji and what they mean. And then we will of course take a look at some real life examples, when is a Doji useful and when is it, not as useful. But yeah guys, without further ado, let's get started right away here. And real quick before we start, I can also just mention real quick that this video is for educational purposes only and nothing in this video is financial advice. But alright, so let's take a look at the Doji candle right here. And on the screen, you actually see 4 different types of Doji candles. But what defines a Doji candle is that the candle opens at the exact same level as where the candle closes. So before watching this video, it's actually important to understand, how to read candlesticks. And I actually have a video about that and I can link it up in the corner. But a candlestick basically looks like this, something like this. This is an example of a bullish candlestick where the candle starts and opens here and it closes at the top of this part right here, which we call the real body. And what a Doji candle is basically that if we make this real body smaller, so we can make it a bit smaller like this, then we have an open here and close here. But if we make the opening price and the closing price very, very close to each other, then the candle will basically just look like a cross. And this, cross looking structure is basically the Doji candle. It is, however, okay to have a, small real body. So if we have a candle that looks maybe something like this, we can still call it a Doji candle. But when the body gets a bit larger, we're talking about a spinning top candle. And I'm planning on making a video about that in the future as well. But alright guys, so what does the Doji candles actually represent? In general, we can say that they represent market indecision. And by indecision, we mean that neither the bulls or the bears are in full control. You can see if we look at this perfect Doji example right here, you can see that during this candle, we have a push up, but we also have a push all the way down. And at the end of the candle, we close at the exact same level as we started. So we neither have a clear direction to the upside nor a clear direction to the downside. So the candles by themselves represent pure indecision. But then we have some different types of Doji candles. First of all, we have the Doji Star candle, which is sort of a Doji here where the upper shadow and the lower shadow are about the same length or a bit longer than the horizontal lines right here. And, this is of course a perfect example. So most Dojis will look more something like this, perhaps something like this, or something like this. It's very, very seldom you will get a perfect Doji Star. But yeah, this is what we call a Doji Star. And if we have very large upper and lower shadows, then we call it a long-legged Doji. And this is an even more extreme example of the indecision. We have, strong impulses to the upside during the candle. We also have strong pushes to the downside during the candle. But at the end of the session, we still, end up where we started. So this is a, massive indecision candle. And we will take a look at an example of the long-legged Doji later in this video. The next candlestick is what we call a Dragonfly Doji. And this one is actually an extreme example. And this one is actually a little bit more bullish than bearish. Because in this case, you can see we open all the way up here. During the candle, the bears managed to push the price down. But at the end of the candle, we see the bulls taking control once again. And we close here where we started. So this is a candle where sort of the bulls are showing more control. And you can compare this one with the hammer candle that looks something like this. And as you can see, this Dragonfly Doji is pretty similar to the hammer. The hammer is a bit more bullish or indicates a stronger momentum to the upside, but the Dragonfly Doji is almost like a hammer. And then we have the Gravestone Doji here. It kind of looks as a gravestone, and the same thing applies here. This one is a bit more bearish, so the downside momentum is a bit more in control for the Gravestone Doji. Here we open here. The bulls managed to push the price up, but before the close, the bears managed to once again take the price all the way down to where it started. And you can actually compare this one to the bearish shooting star candle that looks something like this. They are pretty similar, but the shooting star is a bit more bearish than the Gravestone Doji. Alright guys, so now when you have a clue about what a doji represents and some different types of dojis, now I think we're ready to take a look at some examples and where a doji makes sense and where it doesn't provide as much value. Alright, so here we are looking at the gold daily time frame. And one concept that is important here when it comes to dojis is that if you found a doji on its own, it usually doesn't provide a lot of value. A doji provides more value if it comes after either a strong decline, so we have a strong decline and then a doji, or if it comes after a strong increase and then we have a doji. The doji candle is also found in many candlestick patterns, and if you have a doji in a candlestick pattern, it provides more information than if you just find a doji. If you have, for example, sideways action and then a doji, then it doesn't provide much value at all, because the doji by itself represents market indecision, as we talked about. And if you have a candle that represents market indecision after a long period of just indecision, it doesn't provide, you know, any additional value. But let's take a look here. So right here we actually have a doji. This one has, you can see, a little real body, so a little green part of the candle, but I would still consider this a doji. And this is actually a doji that provides, you know, a lot of value. And why is this doji important? Well, it is because it comes after a very strong decline. So during this decline, you can see that the bears or the downside momentum here is in full control. So this means that the control switches from the bears having full control to market indecision. So here we have a clear switch in the market. And you can also see that this is pretty much a long leg doji. And the following candle, we actually had a strong bullish candle. So this can pretty much act as a confirmation here that we are seeing a switch of momentum, and that at least the strong force here to the downside seems to be cooling off. If you instead look, I hope you can see, we have a doji right here. This doji doesn't really provide much information at all. Why is this doji less important than this one? Well, it is because it comes after, you know, sideways movement. When we see a doji candle after sideways movement, it doesn't provide, you know, as much information than if it comes after a strong move. But alright guys, that's pretty much it for this video. If you feel like you got any kind of help or value, then please consider dropping a like. And if you guys are interested in more, don't hesitate to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I hope I will see you guys in the next video. But for now guys, take care. Ciao, ciao.